Well, good morning. Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to day 22 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Hope you guys are coming off a great weekend and looking forward as we come in on the closing of our story here. All right. Tom Riddle pulled Harry's wand from his pocket and began to trace it through the air, writing three shimmering words: Tom Marvolo Riddle. Then he waved the wand once, and the letters of his name rearranged themselves. I am Lord Voldemort. You see, he whispered, it was a name I was already using at Hogwarts. To my most intimate friends only, of course. You think I was going to use my filthy muggle father's name forever? I, in whose veins runs the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself. Through my mother's side, I kept the name of a foul, common muggle who abandoned me before I was born just because he found out his wife was a witch. No, Harry, I fashioned myself a new name when I had become the greatest sorcerer in the world. Harry's brain seemed to have jammed. He stared numbly at Riddle, the orphan boy who had grown up to murder Harry's own parents and so many others. At last he forced himself to speak. You're not, he said, his quiet voice full of hatred. Not what? Snapped Riddle. Not the greatest sorcerer in the world, said Harry, breathing fast. Sorry to disappoint you and all that, but the greatest wizard in the world is Albus Dumbledore. Everyone says so. Even when you were strong, you didn't dare try and take over at Hogwarts. Dumbledore saw through you when you were at school, and he still frightens you now, wherever you're hiding these days. The smile had gone from Riddle's face, to be replaced by a very ugly look. Dumbledore's been driven out of this castle by the mere memory of me, he hissed. He's not as gone as you might think, Harry retorted. He was speaking at random, wanting to scare Riddle, wishing rather than to believe it was true. Riddle opened his mouth, but froze. Music was coming from somewhere. Riddle whirled around to stare down the empty chamber. The music was growing louder. It was eerie, spine-tingling, unearthly. It lifted the hair on Harry's scalp, made his heart feel as though it was swelling to twice its normal size. Then, as the music reached such a pitch that Harry felt it vibrating inside its own ribs, flames erupted at the top of the nearest pillar. A crimson bird the size of a swan had appeared, piping its weird music to the vaulted ceiling. It had a glittering golden tail as long as a peacock's and gleaming gold talons, which were gripping a ragged bundle. A second later, the bird was flying straight at Harry. It dropped the ragged thing it was carrying at his feet, then landed heavily on his shoulder. As it folded its great wings, Harry looked up and saw it had a long, sharp, golden beak and a beady black eye. The bird stopped singing. It sat still and warm next to Harry's cheek, gazing steadily at Riddle. That's a phoenix, said Riddle, staring shrewdly back at it. Fox, Harry breathed, and he felt the golden bird's claws squeeze his shoulder gently. And that, said Riddle, now eyeing the ragged thing that Fox had dropped, that's the old-school sorting hat. So it was. Patched, frayed, and dirty, the hat lay motionless at Harry's feet. Riddle began to laugh again. He laughed so hard the dark chamber rang with it, as though 10 Riddles were laughing at once. This is what Dumbledore sends his defender, a songbird and an old hat? Do you feel brave, Harry Potter? Do you feel safe now? Harry didn't answer. He might not see what Fox or the Sorting Hat were, but he was no longer alone, and he waited for Riddle to stop laughing with his courage mounting. To business, Harry, said Riddle, and smiling broadly. Twice in your past, in my future, we have met, and twice I failed to kill you. How did you survive? Tell me everything. The longer you talk, he added softly, the longer you stay alive. Harry was thinking fast, weighing his choices. Riddle had the wand. He, Harry, and Fox had the sorting hat, neither of which would be much good in a duel. It looked bad, all right, but the longer Riddle stood there, the more life was dwindling out of Ginny. And in the meantime, Harry noticed suddenly Riddle's outline was becoming clearer, more solid. If it had to be a fight between him and Riddle, better sooner than later. "No one knows why you lost your powers when you attacked me," said Harry abruptly. "I don't know myself, but I know why you couldn't kill me. Because my mother died to save me. My common, muggle-born mother," he added, shaking with suppressed rage. "She stopped you killing me. And I've seen the real you. I saw last year. You're a wreck. You're barely alive. That's why all your power got you. You're in hiding. You're ugly. You're foul." Riddle's face contorted. Then he forced it into an awful smile. "So your mother died to save you, yes. That's a powerful counter-charm. I can see now. There's nothing special about you. After all, I wondered you'd see. There are strange likenesses between us, after all. Even you must have noticed. Both half-bloods, orphans, raised by muggles, probably the only two Parselmouths to come to Hogwarts since the great Slytherin himself. We even look something alike. But after all, it was merely a lucky chance that saved you from me. That's all I wanted to know." Harry stood, tense, waiting for Riddle to wave his wand. But Riddle's twisted smile was widening again. "Now, Harry, I'm going to teach you a little lesson. Let's match the powers of Lord Voldemort, heir of Salazar Slytherin, against famous Harry Potter, and the best weapons Dumbledore can give him." He cast an amused eye over Fawkes and the Sorting Hat, then walked away. Harry, fear spreading in his numb legs, watched Riddle stop between the high pillars and look up into the stone face of Slytherin, high above the half-darkness. Riddle opened his mouth and hissed, but Harry understood what he was saying. "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four." Harry wheeled around to look up at the statue, Fawkes staying on his shoulder. Slytherin's gigantic stone face was moving. Horror-struck, Harry saw his mouth opening, wider and wider, to make a huge black hole, and something was stirring up inside the statue's mouth. Something was slithering up from its depths. Harry backed away until he felt the dark chamber wall, and as he shut his eyes tight, he felt Fawkes' wing sweep his cheek as he took flight. Harry wanted to shout, "Don't leave me!" But what chance did a phoenix have against the king of serpents? Something huge hit the stone floor of the chamber. Harry felt it shudder. He knew what was happening. He could sense it. It was almost as if the giant serpent uncoiling itself from Slytherin's mouth. Then he heard Riddle's hissing voice. "Kill him! Kill him!" The basilisk was moving towards Harry. He could hear its heavy body slithering heavily across the dusty floor. Eyes still tightly shut, Harry began to run blindly sideways, his hand outstretched, feeling his way. Voldemort was laughing. Harry tripped. He fell hard onto the stone and tasted blood. The serpent was barely feet from him. He could hear it coming. There was a loud, explosive spitting around the right of him, and then something heavy hit Harry so hard he was smashed into the wall. Waiting for the fangs to sink in through his body, he heard more mad hissing. Something thrashing wildly off in the pillars. He couldn't help it. He opened his eyes wide enough to squint at what was going on. The enormous serpent, bright, poisonous green, thick as an oak trunk, had raised itself high into the air, and its great blunt head was weaving drunkenly between the pillars. As Harry trembled, ready to close his eyes if it turned, he saw what had distracted the snake. Fawkes was soaring around its head, and the basilisk was snapping furiously at him with fangs long and thin as sabers. Fawkes dived, his long golden beak sank out of sight, and a sudden shower of dark blood splattered the floor. The snake's tail thrashed, narrowly missing Harry, and before Harry could shut its eyes, it turned. Harry looked straight into its face and saw that both of its great bulbous yellow eyes had been punctured by the phoenix. Blood was streaming to the floor, and the snake was spitting in agony. "No!" Harry heard Riddle screaming. "Leave the bird! Leave the bird! The boy is behind you. You can still smell him. Kill him!" The blinded serpent swayed, confused, still deadly. Fox was circling its head, piping his eerie song, jabbing here and there at its scaly nose as the blood poured from its ruined eyes. "Help me! Help me!" Harry muttered wildly. "Someone! Anyone!" The snake's tail whipped across the floor again. Harry ducked. Something soft hit its face. The basilisk had swept the sorting hat into Harry's arms. Harry seized it. It was all he had left, his only chance. He rammed it onto his head, threw himself flat against the floor as the basilisk's tail swung over him again. "Help me! Help me!" Harry thought. His eyes grew tight under the hat. "Please help me!" There was no answering voice. Instead, the hat contracted as though an invisible hand was squeezing it very tightly. Something very hard and heavy thudded on the top of Harry's head, almost knocking him out. Stars winking in front of his eyes. He grabbed the top of the hat to pull it off and felt something long and hard beneath it. A gleaming silver sword had appeared inside the hat, its handle glittering with rubies the size of eggs. "Kill the boy! Leave the bird! The boy is behind you! Sniff! Smell him!" Harry was on his feet. The basilisk's head was falling, its body coiling around him, hitting pillars as it twisted to face him. He could see the vast, bloody eye sockets, see the mouth stretching wide, wide enough to swallow him whole, lined with fangs long as a sword, thin, glittering, venomous. It lunged blindly. Harry dodged as it hit the chamber wall. It lunged again. Its forked tongue lashed Harry's side. He raised the sword in both of its hands. The basilisk lunged again, and this time its aim was true. Harry threw his whole weight behind the sword and drove it to the hilt into the roof of the serpent's mouth. But as warm blood drenched Harry's arm, he felt a searing pain just above his elbow. One long, poisonous fang was sinking deeper and deeper into his arm, and it splintered as the basilisk keeled over sideways and fell, twitching to the floor. Harry slid down the wall. He gripped the fang that was spreading poison through his body and wrenched it out of his arm. But he knew it was too late. White-hot pain was spreading slowly and steadily from the wound. Even as he dropped the fang and watched his own blood soaking his robes, his vision went foggy. The chamber was dissolving in a whirl of dull color. A patch of scarlet swam past, and Harry heard the soft clatter of claws behind him. "Fox," said Harry thickly, "you were fantastic, Fox." He felt the bird lay its beautiful head on the spot where the serpent's fang had pierced him. He could hear echoing footsteps, and then a dark shadow moved in front of him. "You're dead, Harry Potter," said Riddle's voice above him. "Dead. Even Dumbledore's bird knows it. Do you see what he's doing, Potter? He's crying." Harry's blinked. Fox's head slid in and out of focus. Thick, pearly tears were trickling down the glossy feathers. "I'm going to sit here and watch you die, Harry Potter. Take your time. I'm in no hurry." Harry felt drowsy. Everything around him seemed to be spinning. "So ends the famous Harry Potter," said Riddle's distant voice. "Alone in the Chamber of Secrets, forsaken by his friends, defeated at last by the Dark Lord he so unwisely challenged. You'll be back with your dear mudblood mother soon, Harry. She brought you 12 years of borrowed time, but Lord Voldemort got you in the end, as you knew he must. If this is dying," thought Harry, "it's not so bad." Even the pain was leaving him. But was this dying? What was this? Instead of going black, the chamber seemed to be coming back into focus. Harry gave his head a little shake, and there was Fox, still resting his head on Harry's arm. A pearly patch of tears were shining all around the wound, except that there was no wound. "Get away, bird!" said Riddle's voice suddenly. "Get away from him! I said get away!" Harry raised his head. Riddle was pointing Harry's wand at Fox. There was a bang like a gun, and Fox took flight again in the whirl of gold and scarlet. "Phoenix tears," said Riddle quietly, staring at Harry's arm. "Of course. Healing powers. I forgot." He looked into Harry's face. "But it makes no difference. In fact, I prefer it this way. Just you and me, Harry Potter. You and me." He raised his wand. Then, in a rush of wings, Fox had soared back overhead, and something fell into Harry's lap. The diary. For a split second, both Harry and Riddle, wand still raised, stared at it. Then, without thinking, without considering, as though he had meant to do it all along, Harry seized the basilisk fang on the floor next to him and plunged it straight into the heart of the book. There was a long, dreadful, piercing scream. Ink spurted out of the diary in torrents, streaming over Harry's hands, flooding the floor. Riddle was writhing and twisting, screaming and flailing, and then he had gone. Harry's wand fell to the floor with a clatter, and there was silence. Silence except for the steady drip drip of ink still oozing from the diary. The basilisk venom had burned a sizzling hole right through it. Shaking all over, Harry pulled himself up. His head was spinning as though he'd just traveled miles by flue powder. Slowly he gathered together his wand and the sorting hat, with in a huge tug retrieved the glintering sword from the roof of the basilisk's mouth. Then came a faint moan from the end of the chamber. Ginny was stirring. As Harry hurried towards her, she sat up. Her bemused eyes traveled from the huge form of the dead basilisk over Harry in his blood-soaked robes into the diary at hand. She drew a great, shuddering gasp, and tears began to pour down her face. Okay, we're going to stop there today. Hope that you'll join us tomorrow for the conclusion of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Have a wonderful day.